Okay, June 24th. Having a hard time getting through this one, probably because it's not really done in my mind, but there's a few bullet points that I just think are really, really important, and I'm having a hard time telling the story, mainly because I don't want to talk about me, but I don't have a lot of quotes. But I do have them in past videos, so maybe that'll suffice. I don't know. But let's just start with the fun part. The first part, what's the title? I think I'm going to name it Free, Free, Free. I always go back to movies and video or TV, I guess. Free, free, free from a TurboTax commercial. I might name it, there's a statement, an adage, a saying that family or people, gatherings, you should never talk to others about religion or money. Squabbles will occur. Well, that's all I'm going to talk about is religion or money. And money. So, if somebody wants to get all uppity about this, get all uppity. And if you want to parse words and get judgmental, parse words and get judgmental. I'm just going to say some things that I think are really, really true. And here's another television quote. I'm submitting these ideas for your consideration. As per my brother's favorite television show of the 50s when we were kids, The Twilight Zone. I think Rod Serling used to say, I don't know if it's a perfect quote, submitted for your approval? Submitted for your consideration? Submitted for your approval or consideration, we'll leave it at that. So, bullet point number 1. I am sorry that it took me so long to get this. I think it gets back to ego, pride, and other things that are the covering of truth, and they prevent us from seeing the truth. But here's the bullet point. If somebody or something something has the answer to self-realization or enlightenment, shouldn't it be basically free? I just want to say, duh. What else is there to say? If somebody really had, not just selling some stuff, but really had self-realization. Now, if somebody wants to say, look, I'll clean your teeth and we'll give you this result, I get it. Charge for that. But there's a difference between somebody self-realization or enlightenment or spiritual freedom, or I guess it's even, I'm not even talking about a psychologist or something charging for their service. That's a job, that's fine. I'm talking about, somebody claiming to have the answer. And so now I'm going to go into some things. There are a couple stories I've told before, but there's a difference, and this is really interesting to me, that the temple, and this is Vedanta Hinduism, they had a little sign. They've never, ever asked me for a penny, and I've gone there a million times. Used their temple, meditated. But they used to have a little sign that said free will offerings. I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but that's really interesting. Free will. And there's a difference between donations that are really, truly free will, or you can mask donations and say, yeah, it's a donation for $20,000. That's not a donation, I don't think. So I'm trying to differentiate, parse the words on this, true free will offerings or kind of fake donations or charging for services. Now, I will be very fair on this. There are many different paths and teachings in Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, and I surely don't even know a small percentage of them. And I'm sure there are some that never ask for offerings or donations and some that do. I was reading a website of a large temple in Nashville, Hindu, and they charged a nominal amount if you use their temple for a service, like a wedding. And that's fair. I'm not down on every little thing, so spare the criticisms on that. I'm just saying that there's a big difference here. Free will donations, free will offerings, and just flat out masking it and charging. And I just think it should be borderline free. And I had that whole video, 9 videos or so ago, on false gurus. How can you tell? You know, back in the 60s and 70s, they used to have people, from what I've read, we were told, or people were told, go find a guru. Go find a guru. Go to India, find a guru. And there's many celebrities that went. And I've mentioned them before. And they go, and they used to have people from what I was read, I guess they were kind of like setups for the false gurus. And person get off the plane, looking for a false guru here, or looking for a guru, come with me. And that guru would charge a bunch of money. And maybe they had some truths, but they didn't have the answers. And which I'll get into at the end, some statements on that. So I guess it was important to be able to spot a false guru. Ramakrishna even mentioned it in the books in the late 1800s, that if they're asking for money, lots of money, or in the video, my last video, he said, or promising if you just do A, B, C, D, E, boom, give me the money and you'll make it. Emphasis on that final result. No, false guru. So at the temple I've gone to, they've never asked, and I'm just going to tell a little story on that. As I mentioned, they had this little sign, free will offerings, never ask anything. And I once asked the Swami there, how do you guys survive? He said it just always arrives. The money just always arrives, sometimes at places we've never even known, or from places. I think that's extraordinary, and the quote at the end will maybe answer that. And so I'm offering that for your approval or consideration, this whole idea that, and I apologize that I didn't see this before. It should be basically free, and one should follow their principles. And I think that principle of not charging much or very little amounts, I just think that's extraordinary. The great temple where Ramakrishna was, let me bring my books up. Again, Ramakrishna's disciples, the books on the lower right. He was at Dakshineswar. Dakshineswar is one of the great temples of India in Calcutta. I think they now spell it Calcutta. And it was donated, just given and built by the great Rani Rashmani, a very wealthy woman of India. And she did it just out of pure love of God. I mean, just think about that. I think a lot of it is just balance, but it's also love and her belief. And and I don't know, I haven't read about Rani Rashmani. I know there's a little bit of discussion in these books on why she did it, but I can only imagine that she had received so much, she's giving back. And she just built it. And Ramakrishna wasn't even there yet. And he showed up and he became the senior priest. And his practice was there, and Dakshineswar is still there. So she just did it out of pure love. That's, again, the difference between give me money, and we've seen it in all sorts of different types of religions. I would say false religions. And within, though, the great religions, there are false religions within there, too. So I just wanted to bring up that point. I think it's really an amazing... If the answer is there, shouldn't it be also almost free? It seems so obvious to me. And then the difference between free will donations. Oh, and another thing on the Vedanta Temple, which I didn't mention, is a lot of their books are printed at their facility in India. And it's interesting, if you go there, they actually have these little booklets. They're great. Some maybe 30 pages, 50 pages, and actually some of them are 50 cents. Who in this world can see anything for 50 cents? You can't even get a pack of gum for that. And some of the books are $5 and $10 when I've seen other places. So they're groups charging $100, $200. Enough said on that. So why is this so important? And this is the next bullet point. And this is becoming so real to me. And I guess this is more of my realization. And if somebody wants to shoot it down, do all you want. But it is becoming more and more real to me. Actually, this does follow the Vedanta Hinduism. That is that all paths are unique. That where some people are going to, as I just pull this up, are going to follow a path of devotion called bhakti. Some are going to be the path of you can gain self-realization through work. And I'm not going to get into the discussion of this, but I think it's a lot deeper than that. And that our lives intertwine. And this is the thing that is really, I have found beautiful. How our paths in our lives, past lives, however many lives, I know I've seen people talking about millions of lives. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But they're so unique. And we never know, as a friend pointed out recently that I thought was incredibly valuable and spiritually true, that we receive realizations or God's grace. Maybe it's in little pieces, maybe it's big time, but each of these may divert our paths, and it may move us around into different paths. And I think if that particular false guru, it's money, then they're going to be pushing that as opposed to, and forget about that. I just want to go into the uniqueness of all paths. That's what I'm talking about now. And that I have really seen this. And just recently, when I read about karma yoga, I kind of went, okay, I got that one. I wasn't even close. I'm just seeing how powerful that is right now. That if one can have their attention 100% on God, on consciousness, on truth, whatever, and do things without attention or for little s self, just no concern about the result. You do the best you can to do a good job, but your life is not dependent upon that. That's where self-consciousness is, or worry. Oh, what if I do a bad job? What's Dave going to say, or Steve, or whatever, or my boss? No, just do the best you can. And be willing to walk away. Maybe what you were doing wasn't right. There comes honor. There's so many stories on that. But the point being, as I went, wow, there's karma yoga. How powerful is that? And maybe 2 years from now, I'll really start meditating even more. Or maybe I'll just really cherish the last few years. Bhakti yoga, which is the path of devotion and love, has been everything. So we shift and we move. And, I have a dear friend, a Christian, who, I don't know if it's every year he goes, but he goes and wherever, I can't remember the group that does this, that sponsors it, but he's a dentist and he goes and does free dentistry, I believe in Indonesia, and helping the poor. Incredible. Who knows each time he does that, how his path then shifts within Christianity or within life and livingness. And so we might have to move around and maybe it's next lifetime. Maybe it's now. Maybe last lifetime we went free and didn't even realize what had happened. These things intertwine and move around. And so I think we have to be that kind of goes back to this whole financial push or motive. The ugliness of that and the beauty that I have found in at least the temple I go to, Vedanta Hinduism, and in the quotes. So there was that bullet point, and then this one on, because our paths are so unique, and that if we just, and here's what's interesting, I guess I'm saying they're all unique, but it's interesting the similarity in that they generally all have a similar path, in that whether it's prayer or meditation, whether it's study or read your texts, maybe it's nowadays go and watch videos. God, they got videos on everything. On the Bhagavad Gita, go watch them. So, but through prayer, through meditation, through helping others, as Buddha and Vedanta, Jesus, they all say the same thing. Quit craving and let go of the fears and aversions. I've talked all about those, the four immeasurables, and how you practice. But if you really break it down, the simplicity, and maybe we can add live life, just do those things, because grace and realization can happen at any time. And I guess that's what I'm kind of pointing out, that You can't buy it. You can't buy it. You can't really just read it. You practice it, serve others. Maybe that's more, I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there. They call it the middle way by Lord Buddha. And so maybe there's balances of karma that have to occur. So I'm kind of proposing all these for your consideration. I don't know, that Rod Serling quote. Anyway, so I it's hard to say don't worry about money. I know that there are Christian quotes, and I'm sure there are within all religions, but I'm going to bring up this next quote. This is from Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, and he's talking to the great general Arjuna in the discussions of spirituality, life, war, everything. All the different yogas, it's all in the Bhagavad Gita. So in it, I just thought this was a really, really interesting quote. Now, first, I'm going to have to apologize because I read this and it struck me as incredibly powerful. But I had to get through my own false ideas, ignorance, and arrogance connected to religion. As George Harrison once said in a talk, that he couldn't even use the word God for the first years that he studied and practiced Hinduism, but now he just freely, he was embarrassed. And I admit I was too. So, sorry, I don't know what else to say on that one. So here's this fabulous quote. So you have to kind of like put this into whatever practice. But here it is, the Bhagavad Gita. And Lord Krishna to Arjuna, and he says, but if a man will worship me and meditate on me with an undistracted mind, devoting every moment to me, I shall supply all his needs and protect his possessions from loss. Now that's a huge statement. What does that really mean? What does it really mean to worship him, to meditate on him? And kind of goes back to, even in my mind, that karma yoga. How do you do life and work and have your attention on consciousness, God, spirit, goodness? How do you do that? I think that's immensely powerful. And if you can do that, so in my mind, leading an ethical life, meditating, prayer, doing good things, maintaining your integrity or honor. Well, it says, I shall supply all your needs. Protect all your possessions from loss. I think that's an incredibly powerful statement. And so to kind of like end this and wrap this up, the more I look at this, it gets back to that all of these practices and paths talk about letting go of self, finding humility, that what you're doing is gaining oneness with God, self-realization, whatever words you want to use. And more, I just keep, these, as you're meditating, sometimes you're given this almost a panoramic view of so many things, for example, that happened that I did not cause, that a bigger picture moved that around. And it kind of fits that quote. That's all I'm going to say. And I'm going to just continue my practice. But I think these are pretty powerful. I think that thing about money is very powerful. And I think about the thing about your unique path, even within a family. Somebody might be loving Lord Jesus and somebody loving Lord Krishna, somebody loving, I guess you could have an atheist. Yeah. And somebody totally diving into meditation while the other is just loving all. I just think they're all beautiful. And I think that's, and maybe, ultimately where this gets to is that once we all just fully take responsibility for our paths, that it all balances out and we achieve self-realization. I don't know. I'm not there. I'm just throwing out, here's the quotes, here's the ideas for your consideration.